I like peanut butter. I like peanut butter. Peanut butter. I like peanut butter. I like peanut butter. I like peanut butter. Peanut butter.
You're listening to the CreepGeeks podcast. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/CreepGeeks. So it begins again. Welcome back to the CreepGeeks podcast. This is episode number 101.
Adopting Sasquatch, Human Vessel, and Britain's Roswell.
Yeah. This is so silly. Anyway, we're back with the CreepGeeks podcast, episode number 101, and we're going to begin because it begins again. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you're listening to us for the very first time, what kind of podcast are we?
We are an offbeat news podcast where we explore the strange, the stupid, paranormal, and tech topics circulating the web.
Yes, very nice. So anyway, as we try to do every Sunday, is just to live stream the podcast and record it. So if you're listening to it via audio means, it sounds super tasty. But the problem we have a lot of times is lag, man, and started out great. Now we got lag. So for those of you who are watching right now, I don't know what's going on, but I appreciate you sticking around. Yeah. So anyway, it begins again, episode number 101. We got a couple of interesting things to talk about with you today. Hopefully you'll find it interesting. And if they do, or if you do, and you do think it's interesting, you should leave us a review somewhere. Anywhere you listen to the podcast, we'd appreciate it. A little 3 to 5 star review. Yep. We accept, not a big deal. And, iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, anywhere you can basically find a podcast, you can find us. We're there. Yeah. Or you can watch on YouTube's, because we do have the YouTube's channel. And so you have options there. We're all about options here. We're givers. So, yeah. And if you are listening, thank you very much. Yeah. And if you are watching and putting up with us, also, thank you very much. So, yeah. Now we got all the thank yous out of the way. Last podcast was our episode number 100, which is kind of a big deal for us. Now we're down to 101.
Yes.
It's just getting more and more. And just so you know, for October, we wound up having way more downloads than usual. Every time we do the show, every month, bigger and bigger and bigger. And for those of you who stick around and have been listening to us, very much appreciated. That's yes. Right. We give till it hurts. And we try to interact with people who are watching the live stream and comments. And so, very nice. We have a new subscriber named Johnny Martinez. According to the Google, so it's popped up and said, you got a new subscriber. I'm like, what?
Great.
Yeah. So I think that's 7, 8 people. I don't know. It's like 40 or something, or 50, something like that.
We need to hammer down a future contest for subscribers. So that's just my opinion.
Okay, we'll figure it out. Let me know.
Okay.
Submit it to the boss.
No.
Boss is taking a nap. Yeah. So everybody's all like talking to each other in the chat. Very nice. What's up? What's up, guy? What's up? So anyway, getting back into the podcast, I kind of thought this was interesting, and so I put it in here as something. Actually, you put it in here as something, but I still thought it was interesting. We like to do an interesting random factoid. Would you like to tell people what this interesting random factoid is for this particular episode of the CreepGeeks podcast, so number 101?
Yes. This interesting factoid, I actually want you guys, the listeners, if you know more about this, please contribute. Email us, contact@creepgeeks.com.
Contribute.
But this interesting factoid is that there are 2 American cities that have recently adopted Sasquatch as their official mascot. That's pretty cool. Whitehall.
I'm smelling the money. Can you smells it?
Yeah.
I smells the money.
Whitehall, New York, earlier this year adopted Bigfoot Sasquatch as their
Sasquatch.
official mascot. And then recently, within the past month, Marion, North Carolina adopted Sasquatch as their official animal. So I thought that was really interesting considering this year, Marion, North Carolina kicked off their Bigfoot Festival.
First ever Bigfoot Festival, got really huge.
And it was, they were not anticipating how huge it would be for such a small town as Marion.
It's like making a video and it goes viral. You're like, holy crap, we're not ready for this, right?
Yeah.
Well, what about that place in West Virginia? Or is it not West Virginia? It's like southwestern Virginia, the wood booger.
Oh.
Which is just gross.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like, oh, hey, we seen a wood booger. Wood booger is another word for Bigfoot.
Yeah, but...
Or Sasquatch.
The thing is, Marion, North Carolina has a population just over 7,800 people. But I think the Bigfoot Festival almost doubled or tripled that. In the region, I should say. People were staying all over just to come to the festival for a day or two. But they thought the proclamation idea was different, that it was an interesting thing to declare this Bigfoot as their official animal.
It's like, we don't need a raccoon or a squirrel or anything like that. We're going to use Bigfoot.
And this all starts because in August 2017, Bigfoot 911 claimed they had seen a Bigfoot running around in a forest in the state. On the group's page, they described the sighting as a large bipedal animal covered in hair. And from there, it just snowballed into the festival and then everything else. Right down to an official state animal. And that's about it.
So there you go. Marion is I thought she was falling off the thing. Yeah. What's your official animal? Sasquatch. Dang. Dang, man. Dang.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, Whitehall, New York is doing it as well. But I mean, they already got like the Beast of Whitehall. So what's up with that?
I don't know.
Or is it in England?
I think that's England. Yeah, the Beast. Anytime they use like classy words like the Beast or the Hound, it's usually like the UK.
Classy.
Yeah.
Using the word the Sasquatch. The wood booger. I just think it's stupid. Wood booger just makes me mad.
Oh, no.
So we watched that movie, remember? And they were like,
Whitehall, New York has an even smaller population, 2,556. And
well, I think the people from Marion should get on buses and go up there and take care of that.
Well, they adopted it as official animal in a vote that passed 4-0.
So 4 people in Whitehall were like, yeah, it sounds good.
Yeah, their tourism council voted. So, wow. See, the town already has multiple statues and an annual festival for Sasquatch.
Who, Whitehall does?
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
And their sightings started as early as 1976. But it's an 8-foot tall creature darting towards cars and, being seen in the woods. So, yeah.
Well, very nice. So there you go. There's your interesting random factoid. 2 American cities have adopted Sasquatch as their official mascot. I don't know how I feel about that.
Huh. I don't know.
Kind of weird. I mean, I guess, I don't know. It makes sense.
Now, the Beast of Whitehall
We're going to play this song called Running in the Wind.
might also be another name for Jack the Ripper, according to one of our listeners.
Oh.
So, yeah.
So you want to read the next one because I can't pronounce what this thing is called again?
Oh, okay. So.
Oh, hold on.
Yeah.
We call ourselves CreepGeeks, and we do like the weird, the wacky, the paranormal, and the fun stuff that we talk about and the interesting things we find on the internet. Well, the geek part of it is we've been kind of letting it go, but every once in a while, if I come across a deal, I'm going to put it in the notes.
Okay.
Or in the podcast itself. And recently, I had to go out and buy some drill bits. Or not necessarily drill bits, but, the T40. I had to buy a bunch of bits for the drill, right? Our screwdriver thing, because we're working on our van, because we're going to customize it and all that stuff. And I had an epiphany today I need to talk to you about that I might be changing the entire layout of the van because it just struck me. I'm like, what? I'll give you a little hint. Murphy bed.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that'd be a cool idea.
Yeah, and the reason why I thought about this is I was thinking about my dad, who's in North Carolina, my mom. And remember, they had Murphy beds set up in one of the rooms?
Yeah.
Remember that? I was like, man, you know what? We could put... Anyway, so I had to buy some bits because you have to get these torque bits because the ProMaster, the Ram ProMaster, is actually a Fiat Ducato. So it's torque bit everything. And remember, the one I needed was a T40. T didn't have it, right? So I went out and we bought that set of bits. Do you remember how much they cost?
No.
Paid like $14 for this cheesy set of bits because we actually needed them and there was nothing really available to us. Well, Bosch, you ever heard of Bosch? Mm-hmm. Bosch makes good stuff, and they actually have a 34-piece drill and drive bit set. That was normally like $19 when I looked at it. It was down to $7.99 on Amazon.
Okay, so that's a good deal.
Yeah, it is a good deal. So, yeah. Anyway, that's the deal. Figured I'd pass that along to you. So if you're looking for a 34-piece drill bit set and drive, bits and bit driver, yeah, that's not a bad deal. So there you go. That's the CreepGeeks tech deal for this particular podcast. 34-bit drill and bit set from Bosch, MS4034. There you go.
Okay, and I put a link in the chat for our live listeners.
Cool. Does the link even still work?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah, I should probably test that because when I put it in there, I'm like, yeah, and I don't know if I actually tested it.
So
I usually test it, but sometimes things change.
Oh, yep, it works.
Very nice.
So, yep.
So there you go. If you need a 34-piece drill and dry bit set, get one from Bosch. It's actually pretty decent.
Okay.
So, and it's dumb because you always need that one bit, right? We needed the 40, and
I remember when you were trying to do something for the Great White Buffalo, and we ended up having to drive back to a store just for
one freaking bit. And see, that's what happens. It's like the two sockets I lose the most and I need the most are a 13 and a 14 millimeter.
And one of the last times I did bother to clean out the garage, I found two 14s and then immediately lost them a half hour later.
And they know that too, because when you go to buy one socket, they're like, you can buy a complete socket set for like $56, or you can buy one socket for 10. You're like, come on, man. It's a thing. So anyway, in the news, we talked about this before, the mysterious interstellar asteroid.
Umamu.
Mysterious
interstellar asteroid could be giant artificial solar sail sent by aliens looking for life.
Yeah, so here's the deal. They don't know what the hell this thing is. It went from being, a comet, and they're like, nope. And then they're like, okay, so if it's not a comet, it's an asteroid. And they're like, nope. Then they're like, well, it's exhibiting the symptoms of being a comet or an asteroid or both. So they're like, okay, well, nope. And then they're like, it's a derelict spacecraft that came from another universe.
Yeah.
And then they've been scanning it and listening to it and all this stuff, And now they're like, what if it's, one person is saying it could be a giant artificial solar cell. Like sail.
Okay.
Because when the sun hits it, it does weird things, and they're like, what's going on? Because as it was, kind of looping around, cruising through our solar system, when it got in the path of the sun, it picked up speed. It accelerated. They're like, whoa, that's not supposed to happen.
But it could just be warmer particles accelerating faster.
I don't know. Okay. I have no idea. They don't know what it is either. I kind of like the idea it's a derelict spacecraft. So, who knows, man?
Oh.
But, it's the first ever interstellar object spotted in our solar system, which means that it came from another solar system and it come popping into ours. And they're like, hey, it could be a light sail.
Yeah.
Meaning that, when the sun hits it or when light hits it, it actually, the energy, something astrophysicist happens and it makes it do something. Yeah. Well, they were originally saying it's like, the doomsday sphere, but it's not.
But didn't they say, like, when they first started observing Halley's Comet, they noticed it would pick up speed when it hit certain places?
Yeah, but they could explain that.
Okay.
Yeah. Because it's a comet, and the comet does that because it actually has, like, ice and vapor that when it melts, then it causes an acceleration, or it could cause it. And this is they're saying, okay, that maybe solar radiation pressure explained the acceleration.
Oh, okay.
They don't know, but they're considering it an artificial. If you consider it to be of artificial origin, it could be possible it's a light sail just floating around our space, right, as debris. from an advanced technological equipment, which goes back to every couple months or so. Somebody pumps out a theory and they put it out there. We don't know what this thing is. I mean, we know what it's made of, what it's comprised of. We don't know what it is. And so now they're just making shit up.
We even have comments.
It's like, maybe it's just a rock
saying so.
They got spit out at just the right way,
It's a messenger from another system.
Yeah, and it tumbles on the longitude.
Yeah. Read the book, The Singularity Trap.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, oh no, let me read. It's like, okay, this illustration shows Umamu racing towards the outskirts of our solar system.
So,
like, okay.
That kind of brings to mind, though, an article that I didn't put in today's podcast, but it was just like, it mentioned how when War of the Worlds broadcast, when it first broadcast, it put basically entire United States in a panic. I mean, because people were calling, 911. They were just freaking out. But today...
During War of the Worlds?
Yeah.
They weren't calling 911. 911 technically didn't exist, but they were calling all...
Well, yeah, they were calling
like
the
police stations and...
But today, I mean, what if suddenly this thing tilted slightly and showed us a better angle and we saw, I don't know, an alien surfing on it, or it turned out to actually be a UFO?
That'd be a huge alien because the thing's about a half mile long.
But what if it does turn out to be a spaceship? How are we going to respond?
We're gonna activate our secret space force, which has already been in existence since basically the 40s. Take them down.
But as a culture,
raise gun.
As a culture, or as a civilization.
Well, as a civilization, here's what happens if we have full disclosure. There's going to be a small segment of society that's going to go ahead and commit suicide. They're going to kill themselves.
Really?
Yeah, there always is.
Okay.
There's going to be another contingent saying this is just the beginning of the end, and it's going to be doomsday. Right?
Yeah.
So they're going to be like, the end is near, it's the apocalypse or whatever.
They're all going to start buying steam.
So they're going to get all crazy
clothes.
too. Right? And then another large segment is going to be basically driven by fear.
Okay.
Not going to know what to do.
Yeah.
Be scared about the whole thing. Right? So they're going to act out. Everything from, maybe gathering supplies and, whatever, stealing and all that kind of stuff, on the verge of riots and stuff like that because, all that fear. Another segment is basically going to go through and turn it into a religion. Another segment's going to basically just look at the entire thing and say it doesn't exist because it doesn't jive with their religion. There's going to be more and more people going, haha, we knew it. Right?
Yeah.
And then there's going to be the large en masse of people who are going to be kind of freaked out because they're just going to shake them to their core beliefs. But I don't think that's really going to have any real effect. And it's just going to be, I think, business as usual. With a bunch of small sort of outcrops of weirdness going on. I don't think that as a whole, this society is going to break down.
Yeah, with that.
Just because somebody says, holy shit, there's an alien.
And that last group that you mentioned, it's going to, shake them up a little bit, but, business as usual. Do you think that last group of people, I don't know, will respond with any significance because aliens and UFOs have been in our culture for so long?
I just don't think people care about stuff anymore. I mean, look at the internet and social media in general and how things affect. Our attention spans are so short.
Yeah.
It's like, oh man, you feel terrible about something for a couple, 3, 4, 5 days, and you move on.
So you're saying the aliens would have to release a Kardashian or Paris Hilton tape to get any attention?
No, I just think that, as long as, I hate to say it, but as long as it doesn't affect you directly, you don't really give a shit. Even more so now than ever. You're like, oh man, that's terrible. Glad that's not me. And you just kind of keep on moving on because there's so much stuff that happens just on the daily that you can't really care about everything. You know what I mean? So you kind of got to put it in perspective and say, how does this affect me? And I got to go to work and I got to do this and I got to do that. Yeah. And then when it doesn't, you stop caring. And then when it does affect you, you're like, oh man, and people will sympathize and they're like, oh yeah, that's terrible, but it doesn't affect them either. So then they just kind of go on.
I think
it's not until something huge happens that it'll like unite the planet. I mean, if this thing came cruising down and took out like half of Europe, it'd be a different story.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But if this thing, this half-mile long shard hit somewhere, I don't know, I'm trying to pick up like Siberia, right? And it took out a big chunk of Russia.
Kazakhstan.
Yeah, it'd be like, oh man, that's terrible. And it wouldn't be a big deal. But I mean, it would, in order to get people to kind of unite and sort of figure out what's going on, and be more aware of it and be at the forethought of everything, it's going to require a huge sort of devastating thing.
I think I'm in that group where it's going to kind of shake you to the core, but in the sense that...
I'm not, because it's going to be like, crap, I knew this shit was real.
Yeah, but it also makes you go, wow, as a single individual human, I am so insignificant in the grand scheme of things.
Well, yeah, and it also is going to be like, wow, now everything I believed is so silly compared to everything else that is out there. You know, like when you look back on like archaic times.
Yeah.
Like if you go back to the Black Plague, where you had, you know, the doctors and physicians of the time that would go out there, even the people who would claim the dead bodies and get them out. Yeah. You know, so they could be burned because of the plague, and they wore the long mask with the big long noses, and they stuffed herbs and stuff in the noses, right? Because that would protect them against, you know, disease, because that's what they believed, and we're like, that's stupid. That's what's going to happen with everything that we know, right? So when you look back on it, or when you look back and like, wow, everything we believed is dumb compared to a more advanced view. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was just like one of the weirdest example I can think of. It's kind of like, you know, if you went all the way back in time and you got a caveman and you whip out a big lighter and you light fire in front of him, they're like, oh my God, I believed it came from the gods. You must be a god. And, you know, there's even more and more theory now that the word God, you know where that came from?
What?
Guide.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if we've been visited and we had visitors, right, like the Anunnaki and all that stuff, and, you know, because every society, every culture, every civilization has somebody who shows up of great intelligence and trains these people, whether it's agriculture or animal husbandry or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And that person is a guide. But over time, it got turned into God, I think. So now, do I believe that, you know, there's a God out there, there's a unifying force that controls everything? Sure. I think there's something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, because you have to have equal and opposite forces, man. You got to have light, you got to have dark, you got to have yin, you got to have yang, you got to have man. I mean, all of that stuff's in there, but there is something that has to hold all of that in check. There you go. That could be your God force or whatever.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
We have some interesting stuff showing up in the chat about
Do I need to ban people? I will ban people.
So here's the question or scenario. You're an astronomer looking for NEOs, near Earth objects, and you see a huge asteroid on a certain collision course for Earth in the next 24 hours. What do you do?
Well, you die in 24 hours.
Yeah, but do you notify everybody?
To do what?
If you're the astronomer that discovers this.
Oh, if you're like the one person that knows?
Yeah.
You know, would it really matter? No.
No.
I mean, I would call everybody I know.
Yeah.
And let them know how I felt about them.
Oh.
You know? And that'd be about it.
But do you tell everyone and risk the chaos that would ensue, or do you keep it under your hat and let everyone live their last day in peace?
That's what I'm saying. I would I would do what I need to do to make peace, but I would let everybody else just, you know, hey, you wouldn't know what happened, right?
I don't know.
Well, I mean, would you really want to cause that much chaos? That's
the part that I'm torn about.
Because there would be somebody, trust me, there would be people out there be like, you know what, 24 hours, last day on Earth, I'm going to do whatever I want. And it would be bad.
But then there's also people who are like, I'm going to call that person I haven't spoken to in 10 years, or
well, sure.
I'm going to try to go apologize to my dad or something, you know, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
And I would want to do that for those people, not for the morons that are going to go, let's go to Best Buy and riot, steal a TV.
Well, see, that's the problem. How do you do that? How do you do that? You can't.
And then there was another silly question. If the aliens arrived and they said, take me to your leader, who would that be?
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Why would they want to go to your leader?
I don't know.
Yeah, they don't care.
Yeah. So.
You know what I mean? It's like, who's in charge here? And they're going to do one or two things. If they haven't already been here. Who's in charge here? Well, I'm in charge. They're going to kill them. Now you're not in charge. Now who's in charge? No, seriously, that's what, and that happened with a lot of, colonization and stuff. And people would show up and they're like, where's your chief? And then they would just kill the chief. And then like, oh my God, what do we do now? Because the chief's a living God for most cultures, right?
And that's why Prospero recommends that we tell them lizard person Justin Bieber is in charge.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, I don't think necessarily that if somebody showed up, I think it's going to be well apparent and obvious, if this is even a possibility, that we've been researched upon for a long time. So, how do you get into a culture without creating all the issues and having, the entire planet or civilization just destroy itself? You got to infiltrate, man. That's like the next wars. The next big wars that we have are not going to be fought with weapons, like true weapons. I'm talking about huge wars. Like, how can you take down a country without really getting involved and making it economically feasible?
Well, they already do stuff like trade embargoes. And
stuff, sure.
Starve them out.
The big thing would be use the internet misinformation. Right?
Yeah.
Get in there, cause the misinformation, control the through social media, control all the people, and do dumb stuff. And then after that, you go after the power infrastructure. If you turn all the lights off in a country and they stayed off for weeks, and they're so reliant on, what's going to happen? They're completely vulnerable for a long time.
Didn't we do that in the whole little region that Saddam Hussein was in?
What, turn the power off?
Yeah, we turned the power off.
Well, that's the first thing you do is you actually, you create a social divide, and then you get the infrastructure, and then you do a diversionary tactic. It's the modern warfare compared to where it is or where it was and where it came from.
Yeah.
Let's just storm the beach, and that stuff's not going to happen anymore. Yeah. Really, if you do the social side of things and you get rid of the infrastructure or severely hamper the infrastructure, then the next thing you go for is finances.
That's true.
If you take the finances away, then they can't fix, they can't buy, they can't feed their people, they can't do all that stuff, and they're done. That's why cyber attacks are such a terrible thing, or they can be.
Yeah.
And most of our infrastructure, as far as like, your the power and the gas and all of that stuff is so archaic in design that it wouldn't take much to stop the entire thing from running. So if you go through and you you start cutting off stuff, because you imagine right now, what if we didn't have power for 4 days? We'd run out of supplies, right?
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, I'll just go to the bank and get some money so I can buy more supplies. Well, the bank doesn't work either. So then what are you going to do? It's not long before you're like going into a store and like, I'm just going to have to take it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if you got morals, it's going to be a long time. And then when you finally just get so desperate that you have to go to the store, there's nothing there anymore.
Yeah.
And then people are going to come take yours. And people talk about like the preppers and survivors out there, and they say, man, these people are crazy. I don't know, man. If you think about, rule without law, it makes sense, Now, what would happen if everybody's listening to us? What would happen to us at the CreepGeeks podcast if this happened? We're already gone. Yeah. So when all that stuff is going down and we've been paying attention, the albino rhino is fueled up and we're already gone. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah. You'll find us at the bunker. And where's the bunker? Not telling you.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Huh.
How about that?
Okay.
I like what Jay says. Who cares? I'll just get a bottle of whiskey and drink. And Jay says, Greg, who is your leader? Me. Who's your leader?
Pepper.
Got stuff to do.
Pepper's my leader.
Jessica says, but you can say the doomsday people who've been preparing for all this all their lives. Yeah, you can, but chances are they already know.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What are you guys talking about? There's a book for $1.50?
Yeah. Prospero recommended a good book along the lines of what we're talking about, and that book is called The Dig. So it's basically a large rock body.
Link?
Yeah, I put a link in there. Cool. A large rock body that enters into Earth's orbit, and then it turns out to be an alien spaceship.
Like the moon? Holy crap.
Now,
it's the moon.
This book actually came out in 1996. It's got some very good reviews on Amazon.
Really?
Yeah. And
is it available on Kindle?
Yes, it is. Oh, wait. No, hold on. It's available in audio.
Audiobook?
Yeah.
What is that?
Audio. I don't know.
So wouldn't it be Audible?
Not necessarily. There's no Audible link. That's why.
Weird.
Yeah. So
Weird.
you can get a decent paperback of this book for as little as $1.20.
Make it happen.
Yeah. So
I don't see the link, so I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm adding it to my, or you can get the hardcover for 10 cents.
I'll take the 10-cent hardcover, please.
But I got to see how much shipping is. So
The shipping is $700.
close.
How much is shipping? $19.95.
$5. Okay. So yeah. But I think I want to, yeah.
Well, for those of you listening to the audio podcast, you'll find a link in the show notes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, I'm looking at it right here.
Yeah.
Hardcover, 10 cents. Nice. Paperback, $1.20. Mass market paperback, 99 cents. Audio cassette, $23.75. Unknown binding. I don't know what that means. $10.25.
It means that the seller didn't fill out enough information when they posted it on Amazon.
Oh, it's a LucasArts Entertainment Company book.
Yeah.
Interesting. So if we look at all the buying options, you can get this book for $4.94. Nice. We should add that to the cart. Arrives between November 9th and 19th.
Yeah. I'm doing it. Don't worry.
Okay.
I am.
I'm interested in that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So there you go. Excuse me. So getting back into the podcast, we don't know what the hell that thing is. That shard whipping through space.
Yeah.
So speaking of the unknown, as in we don't know what it is, when we come back after this break, we're going to talk about an unknown being in a human vessel. And you're listening to the CreepGeeks podcast.
Audible is an audio entertainment that entertains, educates, and inspires. For you, the listeners of the CreepGeeks podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. To download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/cheapgeek. Again, that's audibletrial.com/cheapgeek for your free audiobook.
And we're back.
Cool.
Very nice. Thanks for tuning in and sticking with us. So it's funny because somebody made a comment that said our music sounds bad. Sounded like it's like dentist music or something. Like what? So I started to type boots and pants because like boots and pants means like boots and pants and boots and pants and boots and pants. But you know,
Yeah.
Brittany says boots and cats, boots and cats and boots and cats. That probably sounds better. Yeah. So, and Jay was at a break. Oh. What does that mean, sir? I don't know. He's like, what? Anyway, back to the CreepGeeks podcast, and we got something else to talk about. I thought this was kind of weird, and I kind of seen this, and I was like, what? So from Phantoms and Monsters, right, there was this little article, little blurb that I read, and I thought about this, and it was from Sunday, November 3rd, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, Saturday, November 3rd, because today's Sunday. Somebody reported this, and it says, on October 13th, I was in an airport lounge at Amsterdam, right?
Yeah.
At the Schiphol airport. I think it's a Schiphol? Anyway,
yeah.
Waiting to return to the U.S. Walking through the lounge, I saw a person pass in front of me. Right?
Yeah.
I suddenly felt a guttural fear and intense revulsion. Outwardly, he appeared to be Asian, but something was wrong.
Okay.
He looked like some type of being wearing a human body, and it didn't quite fit right. I thought of a meat suit.
Ew.
And the feeling of deep dread was instinctive, uncontrollable, stunned. I went to have another look, but I couldn't find him. I'm a very high-frequency flyer with almost 2 million miles on one major airline alone, and I've been in airports all over the world, including throughout Asia, but I have never seen or felt anything like this before.
Huh.
The person's initials are CK.
That's kind of creepy. I mean...
It would make sense if that person was a reptilian.
True, but...
Because, there is a theory that, we were here as workers, right? We were kind of put here and over time developed to be workers, right?
Yeah.
And there was a little skirmish going on between like reptilians and grays and whoever else. And the theory is that some workers were developed to be able to detect reptilians because they hated reptilians.
Oh.
Right. And would fight because it was just an instinct.
Yeah.
So they put this instinct of, fighting reptilians, which overthrew the reptilians and all this other crazy stuff, right? Mm-hmm. So what if this still lingers? What if you just get this innate sort of thing to where for some reason it just sets off your radar, whether it's a reptilian or something unusual? It's kind of like the Van Helsing thing, right?
Yeah.
You can detect evil, and that's your bag, man. You fight that one type of evil. Or you have this early warning radar system in your body to let you know when something's just absolutely not right. But that's why I put this in here. It's like instinctive, uncontrollable, stunned.
Huh.
Right?
Yeah.
Like guttural fear and intense revulsion.
But see, for me, it's weird because when I'm in an airport, I wouldn't pick something up like that. I would get the vibe, but I wouldn't be able to make that distinction right there as far as a reptilian.
Well, I think you could if you had enough airline miles like this guy. Yeah. He's got 2 million flyer miles, man. So he flies all the time. So that unusual environment of an airport is not unusual to him.
Yeah. For me, though, if I were to get that vibe, I would go straight towards, terrorist or something,
I don't know, man. I don't think you would have like an intense revulsion.
With the exception of maybe like Denver Airport or one of the older airports, because they have so much weird mystery and like ties to the Illuminati and stuff like that. We've talked earlier on the podcast about how Denver Airport has those weird statues and some very weird murals that are either reptilian or Illuminati.
Yeah, but I don't think that airport has anything to do with this. It's the person. That's what I'm talking about.
I know.
When you're out in the woods and you feel that sort of, like we've talked about this before, you feel, you're scared of a bear, you're scared of a cougar or whatever, but with Bigfoot, it's completely different type of fear.
Yeah, and I'm saying that it's like familiarity and environmental. I wouldn't immediately pick that up at some random airport or have that ability.
I don't know. But I think I would, because there's certain people that are energy vampires to me, and my reaction to them is rage. And it's like they could be the nicest people in the world, but you feel them just sucking the life out of you, man. Whether it's just completely negative or if they really are just kind of like just taking your energy away. So you're all happy and upbeat and you meet them and you go talk to them and you're just like, God, man, I just cannot stand this person because you just feel like it. You know what I mean? You ever met an energy vampire? Yes. And I think part of the self-defense mechanism that I personally have is just anger. Like I want them to stay away from me. So whatever I got to do using anger or whatever to make them completely aware that I do not want them around me so that they'll leave or leave me alone or not interact with me. And I can't help it. I try to be nice, seriously. and I really want to be nice, but what if you just can't? What if you biologically are just predisposed? I can't, how you say it? Predisposed?
Predisposition?
Yeah, maybe you have a predisposition just to, it's in you to either get away from them, not necessarily fight or flight, but, I guess it is fight or flight, either to, defend yourself for self-preservation, or if you just, I don't know, man. You ever met somebody like that? I mean, have you ever had any situation like this where you've met somebody where you just have been instantly to the point where if this person says or does anything to me, we're going to fight to the death?
Yes.
And you can't control it?
I have.
Yeah.
But more along the lines of, and we kind of talked about this earlier this year, the whole energy vampire thing.
It's like, get away from me.
Yeah. And my instant reaction is flight with certain energy vampires. As soon as I detect or I feel what they want from me, it's like skin starts to crawl and I just want to get out of there. So, and we do have an interesting comment from our live viewers.
What? Is that true? If you spell Illuminati backwards and put it in Google search, it gives you the NSA website?
Yes, it does, because I just tried it.
Now they know where we are. Now they're tracking us. Why would you do something like that?
So go ahead, type Illuminati backwards into Google, and it takes you to nsa.gov.
No, don't do it.
Okay.
Now we have to leave. Yeah, I don't know, man. But when I read that, I mean, I've had experiences, maybe not as intense. I just would assume from the way this person has written this that it was really intense.
Yeah.
But I've had that feeling before where you just look at somebody and you're like, something's way wrong.
Well,
something is way freaking off.
At one of my last jobs, I worked a lot of events and conventions, and there was this one event I worked at where there was this guy, and he gave off what other women at the event told me was a creeper vibe. But when he approached me, it wasn't a creeper vibe. It was something else, like a way too much curiosity vibe. And he actually tried to reach towards my neck to look at he's like, oh, you like turquoise. I like turquoise too. And I'm like, that's nice. And I kind of just brushed his hand away. And,
you should have been like, do not touch me. I will effing kill you.
For me, it was a repulsion. It wasn't a creeped out. It was just this instant repulsion. And I kind of told him, move along, at this convention.
Yeah, beat it.
Move along. And then later on, the security for the convention had to remove him because he tried to do that same thing again for another woman who was much more petite than I am. And he actually got his hands around her neck.
Really?
Yeah. So, I mean, it was funny, though, because literally every woman who was at that convention had that vibe. And, I mean, he wasn't a lizard people, but he was definitely, there was a...
Well, that's just it, though. I mean, see, and I mean, you have that. You have your instincts where, another human is bad. But, I think it's completely different when it's outside of the normal.
Yeah. And
I think the reaction you have is like way different because,
The funny thing was he was dressed very weird. I mean, why are you going to have a hat and sunglasses? And, he had loose old people skin, which...
Because he was an old pervert.
Yeah, but it was just looser than normal.
See, well, I mean, that's part of it. Like this guy's talking about the whole meat suit thing.
Yeah. So that's...
and I don't know, man. I think when you run across a situation like that, you listen to it. When everything when your spider sense is kicking off, I think you got to listen to it. And I've met people like that where it's just like, maybe not as bad as this person, but I mean, I've met people where it's just like, nope. I'm going way out of my way to make sure I don't interact with this person whatsoever.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is like, do you still listen to your hunches? And little kids are good at this. Little kids, if they don't like somebody, they don't like them. They don't know enough about the world to have any other reason to dislike this person. Like they wouldn't know, oh, I borrowed $5 from this guy, never gave it back to him. And they have this hatred or whatever. Little kids are just instinctual. And if the little kid doesn't like you, there's something wrong with you. And I'm not talking about like they don't like you because they're just unfamiliar with you, and eventually they warm to you. If a little kid like physically just does not like you no matter what, then there is something wrong.
Yeah, and they may not be able to vocalize it or express it.
It's instinctual,
in the right way. It's an instinct.
We train kids to not do that. we train them out of that. They're like, oh, hey, this is Mr. So, we train them out of that instinctual sort of feeling that they have, and they start to grow out of it.
Yeah.
Because we don't want them to judge. We don't want them to, all of that stuff that we train them, like, oh, don't judge a book by its cover, and don't do this and don't do that. That's what a little kid needs to survive.
Yeah. And my little brother, it's funny, the whole training him out of it. My little brother had that skill very, very well when he was little. We have funny family stories where, we would introduce him to people, including family members, and he'd call them a witch, or he'd say that person's a scary monster. And honestly, he was right. But he was a little kid. He didn't know how to vocalize that this person was just not a good person, or that no matter what, me and him, when we'd be around that person, we'd have a creepy vibe. And we get trained out of it. My mom scolded him so hard because
that's what they do.
He called a distant relative a monster.
They probably were a monster.
And they were a complete weirdo.
Well, I mean, it's okay to be a complete weirdo.
Yeah.
But a monster, I don't know. I think that, I don't know.
Well, yeah, they were just weird. They were terrible people. So.
Stranger danger.
Exactly. So.
Yeah. It puts the lotion on its skin. What's the password? Oh, here we go. It's like, by now.
Yeah.
So. Oh, we did. We lost a couple of people. They're like, the old NSA thing. If you type that in backwards, they're like on.
Oh, wow.
So anyway, but yeah, I read that and it's like, okay, I think that if you have that sort of weird vibe or feeling, or especially if it's really intense, you need to listen to it.
Yeah.
There's been times where I've been driving home. I usually take the same route. I know it's bad for ninjas and terrorists to get you and all that stuff, but a lot of times it's easy where it's just like, I got to go a different way.
Yeah.
And I do.
Oh.
I listen to it, and whether that's good for me now, I don't know, because people are like, well, what happened? Did the other way that you normally would have went, did it explode? And I'm like, well, no, but that's just it. You never really know.
Yeah.
You take a different way home or whatever, and you altered some things a little bit, but does that actually change anything, or is this what you were supposed to do? Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, I get that feeling a lot around here in Albuquerque, and I would try to go with it. The problem is I don't know Albuquerque well enough to make it home safely.
Yeah.
But the times I fought that instinct, something would happen, like I would be stuck in 1 hour traffic on Montano, or
Montano.
Yeah, Montano, or Alameda would have some serious accent and there's no way around it, and it's go with your gut, try to find something. And when I couldn't, I would actually just pull over and just, hey, there's a PetSmart right here. I've got a bad vibe about driving. Let's just walk around in PetSmart for 10 minutes until the feeling goes away.
And you come home with like garbage from PetSmart.
This is a parsley dog treat.
Ooh, yeah, they'll love it. These are pumpkin spice flavored dog snacks.
Yeah. So.
The dog's like, what did, no, I'm gonna
But you know what? I came home okay and nothing bad happened.
Yeah.
So.
Just spent money on pumpkin spice dog snacks. Very nice.
Yeah.
It's you.
Oh, so this was just an interesting thing that I found, and it struck me as funny because when we think of the state of Texas, I usually think of a little bit of a positive gun culture, and I appreciate that. I'm really big into the Second Amendment. This is a new article basically stating that the oldest weapons ever discovered in North America were uncovered in Texas.
Well, there you go.
So hand in hand, that's pretty awesome. Researchers with Texas A&M University made the stunning discovery during a dig at the Deborah L. Friedkin site, located just 40 miles northwest of Austin. Archaeologists had been searching for artifacts at the site near Buttermilk Creek for more than a decade. I'm just like, Buttermilk Creek, what?
That's better than Never mind. I was going to say Granny Squirrel Nut Gap Road.
Yeah. But this may be their most important find yet at this site where they've been excavating for like a decade. Michael Waters, a professor of anthropology and director of the Center for the Study of First Americans at Texas A&M, described the various ancient items they found in a study published recently. They found 3 to 4 inch weapons, including spear points made of chert, under sediment that they believe to be 15,500 years old.
Dang.
Yeah, that's crazy. So these were projectile point weapons, very similar. I guess they were found under a layer with Clovis and Folsom project points. So, yeah. The Clovis people invented the Clovis point, which is a spear-like weapon, and it's been discovered in portions
like an arrowhead or spearhead.
Yeah, pretty much. And, commonly found in the U.S. and Mexico. They were previously considered the first people to enter the North American continent. So, yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah. Oh, and these weapons were used to hunt large animals.
Large animals.
Yeah.
Like bison.
Yeah.
And elephants.
Mammoths?
Woolly mammoths.
Yeah.
Unicorns.
No, not unicorns.
You don't know.
So, but I do think it's funny. Every time we think we have things figured out about our past, something changes.
Yeah, I don't think we know
half of it.
No,
so,
not even close.
Yeah.
It's like, we don't know. So you don't know. You're right.
And one thing I wanted to mention is the fact that, they've been excavating this site for a decade. A lot of people are like, wow, all that time and they haven't found anything. We still have a place right here in the Sandia Mountains in Albuquerque. They've been excavating the same site for 20 years, and they're still finding new stuff.
Yeah.
So,
and just because you excavate doesn't mean you actually find anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. Unicorns were not hunted to extinction with church-tipped arrows. So, no.
Who said that?
One of our listeners in the chat. So.
Oh, but why would you make a spear from pieces of a church?
Chert.
Chert.
Chert. C-H-E-R-T. It's actually from the Flint family. The difference is that chert usually has a colorful appearance, such as white, red, blue, and something with inclusions. So flint is usually traditionally black or gray or a dark black blue.
Are you talking to me?
No, I'm not. I'm explaining chert.
Chert.
So that's my nerd rock education for today.
Chert, chert.
Yeah.
Very nice. Well, I think we're going to need to go ahead and take another little break.
Okay.
Because I'm starting to smell some chicken. And it should probably be checked upon to make sure that it's actually okay.
All right.
Because as we do here on Sundays when we actually record this podcast and do a little bit of a live stream, when we get done, we have a big Sunday dinner. And we actually eat, at least one good meal a week, because you should. And ours this time was chicken.
Chickens.
It's like it's always chicken, but I like chicken.
Well, it's Sunday, so.
Yeah, there you go. So we usually talk about this with live stream before the show actually starts, before the podcast is being recorded, but I thought I would share. So anyway, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. You're listening to CreepGeeks Podcast.
Okay.
So just in case you were wondering or worried, our vegetables are now in with our full-blown whole baked chicken. Life is good. And last week we had a super tasty German chocolate cake, which was super tasty.
That's what I forgot to get from the store.
What?
Stuff to make dessert.
We have a dessert mix.
We do?
Cake mix.
But
Yeah.
we have no frosting.
What?
Yep.
Okay. I'm open to a lot of things. Cake without frosting? That's just bullshit.
Well,
So we
what are
can't do
supposed to
that. I'm just saying. You know, some people like cake without frosting. They're like, oh, it's great. No, it's not.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have nothing for dessert today.
Nope. We'll just eat Halloween Starburst.
I'm so sick of Halloween candy.
Well, maybe if we get done with the podcast, we can make we can do something about the
treacherous trek to Walgreens.
a treacherous trek to Walgreens. Like, you will travel many mile. Right? So 1 mile, right? All right, anyway. Welcome back to the CreepGeeks podcast, and we're going to begin where we left off. And where we left off, we were talking about some different things. Texas has the world's oldest, or not world's, North America's oldest discovered weapons was in Texas, which is very nice. Now let's talk about Britain's UFO hotspot. Britain's Roswell, if you will.
Yeah.
It's called Rendlesham.
I couldn't say that one to save my
That's
life.
why I said that. Rendlesham.
Why can I say some words,
Rendlesham.
but not other words? So
I don't know. And it's at the Rendlesham Forest at RAF Woodbridge. It's Britain's Roswell, and they get more UFO encounters than what they had in the past.
yeah.
So there you go.
Oh.
And this happened October 29th, right? And it's an article from the Metro. It says news, but not as you know it. I don't know what that means exactly. But it said, did American airmen in Britain really see an eerie triangular spacecraft, right, with his eyes with his lights looking like a glowing red eye near Suffolk in 1980.
Yes. And Rendlesham Forest, the Rendlesham Forest incident is probably Britain's most famous UFO encounter, and aliens are still seem to be hanging around the site, according to UFO fans. Now, that's what the paranormal investigators Ghost Tech reckon after their walkie-talkies mysteriously stopped working as they investigated. And then they saw something weird.
And then it got weird.
Granted, it could have been the batteries, but of course the investigators are convinced it was aliens. Lead investigator Jeff Young said, on the first night we managed to not only see the lights for ourselves, but we also captured them on film. We were the only people in the forest, and we had to walk 3 miles through the forest to reach the location, so there are no roads or any other explanation for what we had witnessed. We saw the UFOs moving through the trees and again captured them on film, but this time much more clear than before. So they're showing off their findings in a YouTube series, and they did post a link trying to get it to play. We'll go ahead and share the article in the show notes so that you guys can watch it too. But these guys, the video, they interview a few people before they show the finds. You have to watch through all that stuff.
Nice.
Yeah, so the original UFO encounter at the site had been the subject of multiple films and documentaries, and even today, the revelation by one witness of missing hours during the incident made headlines around the world. Now, what's unique about the incident, sometimes described as Britain's Roswell, is the detailed accounts by serving military personnel. The events unfolded across 2 nights in December 1980 in Rendlesham Forest near RAF Woodbridge, which at time was used by an American Air Force. 2 American soldiers, John Burroughs and Jim Peniston, claimed to have seen strange lights like a huge red eye in the woods in Rendlesham in Suffolk. They approached the lights, initially thinking it was a downed aircraft, but Sergeant Peniston later described seeing a craft of unknown origin. Now, retired Colonel Charles Halt had made a dictaphone recording as the events unfolded and has since claimed that RAF radar personnel also detected the craft, but were unwilling to give statements until they retired. Which I can see. I mean, you know, you don't want anything to jeopardize your career, especially back then. But Holt claims to have written statements from RAF personnel saying they too detected an unknown craft.
Yeah.
And then a statement of a recording. While in Rendlesham Forest, our security team observed a light that looked like a large eye, red in color, moving through the trees. After a few minutes, this object began dripping something that looked like molten metal. Yeah. The soldiers made drawings and descriptions of craft which resemble flying saucers. Oh, and that's cool. So, kind of like here in New Mexico with the UFO trail in Cuba.
Yeah.
They have a Rendlesham Forest UFO trail that you can follow.
Nice.
Yeah. So, skeptics claim that the marks of the UFO's landing are in fact rabbit holes, and that the lights came from a nearby lighthouse or from an aircraft.
That's possible too.
Yeah. But I don't know. It's still up for debate. There's a lot of skeptics claiming, that it wasn't what they thought it was. There was no alien ship, and that it's all a hoax. And that's about it. But I think the reason I mentioned this was because I remember hearing that there's been some other accounts lately from Rendlesham Forest.
Yeah.
I think Mysterious Universe, another podcast, talked about it, that right in that same forest, there was an increase about a year ago of missing time and accounts from World War II. We talked about them on the last episode.
It was I think it was like a bomber.
Yeah.
Flying through above Rendlesham Forest, and people were like, "What is that?" And it was seen then not seen, then seen then not seen.
Yeah, what is that concept called? We just talked about it on the last podcast.
Yeah, if you hadn't said anything, I'd be able to tell you, but yeah,
dimensional shit rift.
Yeah.
Yeah. A couple of accounts of dimensional rifts, like people, soldiers who were doing maintenance on the base, and they drove off and drove back on, and suddenly it looked like World War II again. You know? So that type of stuff. But I want to learn more about this, because it seems like, everybody's like all about Roswell, but then there's all these other places that are just as...
Yeah, there's there's tons of them, but
I mean, like the Phoenix Lights in Arizona, that's got me really interested. And then, what's the other place? We have that place up here in Cuba and Farmington, New Mexico, where they claim that there was UFO sightings as well. It seems that Roswell over-dominates the conversation, but there's many other places you can go with, there's an alien that's supposedly buried in Texas, and then there's one buried in southern New Mexico as well.
Yeah.
So why aren't these in the conversation, And this place has so many accounts, like dictaphone recordings, and it had media coverage, like national media coverage at the time. Nobody mentions it. I mean, this is on a UK website. Yeah. So I think it's more than just Roswell. There's other events in our recent history that we could take a serious look at and... find out more about this.
Yeah, I want to go look at like the weird stuff. Like go to Texas and see if we can find the grave.
Yeah,
to that alien that was supposed to be buried there, and find like find some of those like lesser known things that we can go to, especially if they're meeting a couple criteria. Easy to get to, doesn't cost anything. Right, and hopefully there's a little bit of information on. But I mean, yeah. Well,
that's when we first moved here to New Mexico, I found out that the Roswell incident didn't actually happen in Roswell. It actually happened just outside of it. And I did all this research and all this other stuff to try to figure out how to get there. And the information wasn't there. And then this year it gets published. Oh, well, here's the actual location. And now you have to, you do have to pay and sign up to go on a tour.
Yeah, it was going to be like, I think it was going to be like, it was supposed to be $100 or something like that.
Yeah, or worse.
A piece.
There was a UFO crash in Artesia, New Mexico that happened not long before or after Roswell. It happened around the same time. And
it was before.
Yeah, right there in Artesia. The problem is, as soon as I hopped in the Trailblazer, printed out the Google directions, and used my phone, and before I knew it, I was on native land. So
Yeah.
I was on reservation land and I was not supposed to be there. That's the pitfalls that I've been running into trying to do some of these investigations. But I really want to see it because there are pictures floating around of this really cool crash site that I can't get to. So, yeah.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
Very nice. Okay, well, anyway, I was looking through some stuff and I come across this, and every once in a while we have a rant, and I have one. And this is in the Washington Post, and I seen this, and I'm like, what are these people thinking?
Okay.
The school teachers who dressed up as Mexicans, right, and made a MAGA wall, you know, MAGA is Make America Great Again, wall for Halloween have been suspended.
Okay, I got to hear more about this because I don't know the full story just from that.
Well, I didn't either, so I looked at it and I'm like, okay, what now? and here's, okay, whether you believe the president is good or not, or whatever, this is besides the point, right? Mm-hmm. So an Idaho superintendent has issued an apology and placed 14 people on paid administrative leave.
That's like half a school.
Yeah. After staff at a public elementary school dressed up as Mexicans and a border wall for Halloween.
Okay.
So the images began circulating on social media. They depict more than a dozen adults dressed up into two groups. You got the Mexicans and you got the wall. Uh-huh. Yeah. So this is in a town. This is Middleton Heights Elementary School, town about 7,500 people. It says 30 miles west of Boise. One group dressed up as stereotypes of Mexicans, replete with maracas, ponchos, sombreros, and fake mustaches. Mm-hmm. And the other group dressed up with segments plastered of the Make America Great Again slogan on the wall.
Okay.
Yeah. So here's my rant. Did they not know that dressing up like Mexicans is not funny? That shit is racist. It is. I mean, look at them. It's a stereotype. And, okay, so when you're dressed up like this, okay, so we're in New Mexico. Not Mexico. We're in New Mexico. Have you ever seen Mexicans wearing sombreros or New Mexicans wearing sombreros?
No.
Not unless they're in like a mariachi band or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And do they all have the big mustaches and wear the falsa blankets as ponchos?
No.
And you have maracas? That shit is racist, man.
Yeah.
And that's the problem I have.
Yeah.
They thought it was okay to dress up like that, and then, we'll make the wall section to make it okay.
Wait, so they made the wall section to make it all right? That's terrible.
That's kind of the thought I have. I'm looking at it, I'm like, well, hold on a second. So they're disparaging these people, and then they have a wall. Mm-hmm. And in the wall sections, they have like Statue of Liberty, I don't know, American stuff, and it's like this whole thing. What the hell made them think this was okay?
I don't know. And
I know it's Idaho, but I mean, come on, man. I mean,
we live in such a racially triggered culture right now, society right now.
This is odd. I mean, look at the picture. This is like.
I mean, it's been.
Would you be offended if you were? I'm offended, and I'm not even Mexican.
There's been a campaign culturally for the past 3 years in America for not culturally appropriating other people's stuff, especially around Halloween. It's offensive to dress as a Native American. It's offensive to dress in these costumes. It's offensive to dress up in like a little chingsang, which is a Chinese traditional outfit.
It's appropriating culture is one thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I can see that if you're appropriating culture because you like it and you want to emulate it, you think it's great.
Yeah.
Like that woman, that Chinese, well, she wasn't Chinese.
Let me make my point, which is the fact that if this has been going on in society for at least 3 years, that it's not okay to do something like this, you should be aware that it's not okay to dress like this. It should be conscious. It should be in your community that common sense.
And I'm going to take it that since these people are dressed this way, and they're obviously, that there's.
Yeah.
I don't want to say this is like a Republican or liberal thing or whatever, but these people are freaking idiots.
Yeah.
Right? And I get it. They're in Idaho. Maybe they don't know any better, but that's bullshit too. Because, I mean, if you can't, so you can appropriate somebody's culture if you think that maybe you want to be a part of it, you like it or whatever. If the intention is good, I don't necessarily see too much of a problem with it. But this was obviously making fun of, and they're going to say they were making fun of the Make America Great Again, but when you're dressed like that and you're like a Mexican dude, wouldn't you be offended by that? I mean, honestly, it's like you got to pick your poison here, right? Which one offends me more? The fact that these people are, they're in a public school with kids and they're going to put their opinions out there, whether it's political or otherwise, that should have been brought up too. It's like, okay, your political opinion is not the place to be expressed in a public school.
Yeah.
Because what we see here is we see a lot of schools and a lot of teachers, and this is even worse, more worse in college, where, you're putting out your political ideology, your political opinion, like yours is the only one that matters. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I kind of think that, okay, you should take religion should not be in schools, all of them, including, Islamic or Catholic or whatever. That shit shouldn't be taught in school.
And
right?
Politics should be out of
Politics
school.
Should be talked about, but your opinion shouldn't matter. And honestly, I think that it should be a neutral place when it comes to this sort of thing, so you could build your own opinion, because there are a lot of dumbasses out there.
Yeah.
Who are going to make your impressionable child, they're going to influence what they think about this sort of thing and make them think it's okay. And it's not okay to dress up like a bunch of Mexicans.
Yeah.
I mean, like the only thing that would have made this picture worse is if they had sombreros, the blankets, big fuzzy mustaches, your typical and the maracas and all that stuff. If instead of wearing, clothes underneath the ponchos, which are Mexican blankets, they were dressed as a burrito and a taco and an enchilada or something like that. That would be to make it the worst thing.
Yeah.
It was. I looked at this, and before I even read anything about this article at all, when I put this in here, I'm like, why are these people dressed up like Mexicans?
Yeah.
And then I read it's a public school. I'm like, well, that's great. And I'm like, oh, and it's an elementary school. That's even better. And it's 14 people doing this. It's like, what? That's yet, if you you're too sensitive. No, there's a difference. There's a difference between trying to culturally appropriate somebody's culture, and then there's also a difference between, okay, well, hey, let's just go ahead and it was done in poor taste. It was wrong.
Yeah.
That shit is racist, right? And it's like the board later said that the investigation would continue. This type of behavior has no place in education and is certainly not tolerated here at Middleton School.
Yeah.
The situation is being taken very seriously, right? And this is an unfortunate incident of very poor judgment. Yet it's not indicative of the middle school district of our teacher or our teachers as a whole. Bullshit. You got 12. 12 of your staff are doing this, right? It's not, our teachers aren't racist. Well, then they're not educated enough to be smart about it. Idaho is not that far away. I'm sure there's probably some Spanish or Mexican people there.
Yeah.
There's probably other races or cultures there too, right? And so it's like the story had quickly taken off on Friday evening, drawing in the national news media outlets. Angry reactions flooded the school's Facebook page, and social media responses were harsh. The fact that these elementary school teachers thought it would be okay demonstrates, right?
Yeah.
How much more culturally competence, I can't even read this. How much more cultural competency training is needed in education? It's like, okay.
So these people are basically in charge of our children, of our future, and they're making these decisions, and they require more training to be around them.
Yeah, well, because they think that their opinion of whatever this is right, and everybody else will think it's funny. Which not everybody has the same opinion that you do, regardless of whether you think it's right or not. I mean,
and you know how you were mentioning earlier,
whenever it comes to kids, I think that shit just needs to be on lockdown. And, it's like your opinion is your own. Keep it to your damn self.
And you were mentioning earlier how those opinions, they impress upon the children when they shouldn't. There should be no bias. Even if you are giving factual information, you shouldn't have that bias. It should be
the way the news
influence
is supposed to be,
which it's not.
Journalism was supposed to be in the past.
Because
it was like, yellow press, right?
Yeah, because one of the things that is a side effect or consequence of impressing those things is if you keep impressing a certain mindset on the next generation, you are dooming or foretelling that generation to have the opposite mindset. And I can say that confidently, being a child of the late 80s and going through public school and having certain political opinions pushed upon me and being rewarded or having other students rewarded for having those same feelings, or actually having, like, remember the Bush-Clinton election?
Yeah.
Kids got candy in my little school if we voted. And we all cast our ballots. And if you voted Republican, you got a peppermint. And if you voted Democrat, you got a Starburst.
That's some racist shit right there, too.
So, and, you know, similar examples. I mean, granted, they're not handing out candy.
Why would they just not give out, like, I mean, why would, okay, so they're directly influencing.
Yeah.
You know, when you're a little kid, which tasted better, Starburst or peppermint?
Yeah.
If your grandma voted peppermint, right? That's the problem I have. It's like, well, we're just giving them candy. No, you're not. And that's what I hate. It's like, keep that crap
and that psychology
out of schools, man.
Translated down to me as young as I was in like the 5th grade or so.
You're like, I don't want no damn peppermint.
That psychology behind it, old people like peppermint, young people like Starburst, that actually translated down to me at that young age. So, you know, did I want to associate myself with the old people who like peppermints?
Yeah.
You know? And it's going to have a consequence like that. If you're trying to...
I got in trouble in high school one time because... My teacher was super ultra, I guess, liberal at the time, and you know, and he was saying how much he hated the two. He said, "I hate both the parties that we have," right? And then he talked about the fear mongering and how Republicans were going to take away Social Security.
Okay.
Which is like the biggest freaking fraud that you hear all the time. Like, oh, they're going to take away Social Security. It's like Social Security is actually funded in the budget under its own thing. It's completely separate from the military budget, the medical budgets that we have. It's separately funded, so that you can't necessarily do what they're trying to do. It's a fear mongering tactic. They say if you vote for this particular party, they're going to take away firefighters, and they're going to take away all these social services that you rely on, right? And the police force and all this other stuff. They're going to take it away to scare you into voting the other way. When if you do a little bit of research, no, that cannot be unfunded. It's completely separate. Social Security has been funded and is funded all the way up until like the year 2100. It's completely its own separate animal, and you can't take money from it, you know, to do this and do that. And it's like it's an ignorance thing. You don't really know. And I told him that. I'm like, hey, look. He said, does anybody agree or disagree? And I said, well, I disagree, because that's funded under its own. Because when Truman funded that a long time ago, that became part of it. And I actually watched when Reagan was running for president, where they said exactly that: Republicans are going to take away social funding, and he basically explained it in great and agonizing detail that that's not the case. And then, you know, it's funny, like 2 weeks ago, or actually not even 2 weeks ago, like last week on Facebook, I seen where somebody had put that little clip in there of Reagan explaining how Social Security was going to... But regardless of your opinion, in your personal opinion, I think we need to get to the point where that stuff is not taught. It needs to be, you know, sort of not biased one way or the other.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you're excluding one opinion and promoting of yours. Or you're promoting your own opinion, which excludes somebody else. I don't know anybody that runs right down the middle with this kind of thing.
But isn't that also along the lines, that famous quote, history is written by the winners?
That's what they say.
So,
sure.
I mean, if you continue to influence one way or another, that becomes history.
But in our particular case, the losers are the ones that are writing the history books. And are funding the history books.
Gosh.
And are fighting about what's put in the history books. And if you really go back and look, let me give you an example. We both went to school in the Virginia Beach public school system, right?
Yeah.
I remember being in the first, second, third, into the fourth grade, where we were taught colonial history, because we have Colonial Williamsburg, we have Jamestown, we have all of this stuff that happened way before Plymouth Rock.
Yep.
Right? We were taught about the Witch of Wichita.
Yeah.
right? In great and agonizing detail, and all the curses and all that stuff that sort of happened. It was taught around Halloween because it was kind of interesting. And we were taught about Pocahontas and Captain John Smith. We were taught all that stuff in a lot of the details. And we were even taught that Jamestown is the first documented case of cannibalism in the colonies.
Yeah.
You know, you don't hear any of that now. It's basically taught that Pocahontas saved Virginia. You know, it gets so sort of, I hate the fact that they have to sort of pick and choose history and exclude or include facts that aren't correct. And they reduce, you know, what was like a week of learning about our colonial history in Virginia down to like, 2 pages.
Yeah.
And it's and they said, well, we want to make sure that we in other words, they said that they need to be culturally sensitive.
Yeah.
Is a reason why, because they didn't want to offend like witches or anything like that, right? And Native Americans also. But the history I learned wasn't so whitewashed. Where the colonials, you know,
but
the
you
colonists
can't say
were
whitewashed
great.
Anymore, because that's also a connotation there.
See, well, I'm losing here, but I mean, you know, it wasn't taught that way. It was taught that, hey, the colonies, they weren't good. They weren't good to the people. It wasn't like, oh, hey, and it's like, if you really want like Thanksgiving, right? Look up Thanksgiving and how that really went down. It wasn't like everybody says, yay, they showed us how to grow crops and we all got together and celebrated. No, we took all their freaking land right out of the gate. It's a thing.
Oh, speaking of Native Americans, New Mexico had its own little Halloween faux pas. A Cibola High School teacher on leave for alleged cultural remark, haircutting incident. And it's apparently so offensive, they won't even tell you.
You get an offensive haircut?
No, they won't tell us what exactly was said. But apparently this teacher, in some sort of costume, possibly Native American, ran up to a student who was also Native American. Well, she is Native American. This teacher was in costume and cut her hair.
So she's like scalping her?
That's what they're not saying in this article.
What is?
And he did that. This teacher did this in front of 2 other Native Americans.
Wow.
Yeah, 2 other Native American students. So apparently 3 Native American students, 1 teacher dressed as a Native American, cut a student's hair.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they won't say anything else as to what actually happened because apparently it's really offensive. There's no pictures. A letter was sent out to all the high school students. They're investigating. This teacher has been a teacher since 2003 and is a very popular, highly regarded teacher. So...
You know, I mean, come on. I get it. They probably thought it was funny or whatever. It was meant to be in jest. But if you give it like more than half a second of thought before you react, you're like, well, maybe somebody might not think that's funny.
But if you cut my dad is Hawaiian. Hair is very important to the Hawaiian culture. It's also very important to Native Americans. Well, you touch a woman's hair, oh my God. Yeah.
Well, if they're dressed like a Native American running up on another Native American cutting hair, I don't think it's just like I'm just cutting your hair.
That's yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. So.
I guess. I don't know. I just think that kind of thing, and I would hate to see. Here's the problem with the entire thing. Once you get to the point where you're suppressing both sides to come across a neutral, then you really lose a lot of culture.
You also lose a lot of anecdotal history.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? And Miss Espinoza is correct. That could be assault of some type. Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, I mean, like my daughters both have long hair. They keep it relatively long, and they've always had long hair. And I couldn't even imagine if a teacher ran up and tried to cut their hair. I know my oldest would start fighting right there.
Yeah.
And my youngest probably would too. But more importantly, I would be kicking the door in because, they donated their hair to Locks of Love for a couple years straight, for a while. They've done it a couple different times, but teachers, especially when teachers are dumbasses, need to stay away from the kids.
Well, that's...
You know what I'm saying? That's the problem we actually have. The good teachers, the really good teachers, I think it's hard to be a teacher because I think you're just surrounded by a bunch of idiots. to a certain degree.
Well, that's the thing. This is New Mexico. People are asking in the comments in our live chat of the podcast, was the teacher arrested? Are the police involved? Yes, this does count as a form of assault. It also counts as a cultural offense. The police are investigating, but they haven't arrested him yet, the teacher. The teacher's just been put on a leave and is not allowed near students.
Well, that's good. He should be put on leave because, hold on, whenever something like this blows up and things get influenced by social media, a large overreaction happens. So this person who's been doing good for a long time does a pretty stupid mistake, right?
Yeah.
Do they need to get arrested, thrown in jail, and basically just get pounded away forever? No, they don't. But that's the problem we have. Either we don't react or we completely overreact, and there's no middle ground with that. Just like when you talk and go to school, one side is displayed, the other side is completely ignored. There's no middle ground.
Yeah.
So, does this guy need to go to jail for this? No. I mean, does he need to be arrested? No. I mean, if charges need to be filed, that's really up to the parent, I would think. I mean, I get all that stuff, but that's the problem I have. It's like you're screwed one way or the other. That's like when a cop pulls you over and makes a mistake and categorizes and basically field tests some donut glaze and it comes back as meth and you lose your entire life for a simple mistake. And in the grand scheme of things, what did he actually do to that person? Did it cause them great physical harm? Is it going to distress them for the rest of their lives? All that stuff, probably not so much. Yeah. Right? Because it's hard to say. But does this person need to go to jail for years over this crap and lose their job? And no, they need to be aware, hey, you made a dumb decision, you're going to pay for it, but it should not destroy the rest of your life because we're going to overreact as a society.
Because that's a thing, some of the comments in our chat are not from within America. And here's just a little bit of education. An arrest as well as a charge, depending on the level of background check performed by a prospective employer or security clearance, both the arrest and the charge will actually show up on a background check.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm kind of glad that it's a thorough investigation. And speaking to the social media thing, that's why on here, there's no full details on this article. So they're taking this seriously.
Yeah.
So nothing about what the teacher actually said or how much hair was cut off. So that I'm like okay with. But the fact that, it is pretty offensive. It is
offensive. And, and Prospero brought up something. One of the ways that residential schools shamed First Nations children was by cutting their hair.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
They did that in Australia too for the Aboriginal children too.
They do that for every culture, and guess what? They do it to you in the military when you join.
Yeah,
you go and get all your hair cut off.
Yeah,
and they say it's for sanitary reasons, and it probably is. But you know what though? When they shave you, when you go in there and trust me, man, you get all your hair cut off. You can't even walk when you get done. It's like you're uncoordinated. You just don't know what's going on. It really throws you for a loop.
Feel naked.
Yeah, well,
like emotionally.
Yeah,
too. Yeah,
it's weird, man. But yeah, he does bring it up, and that's a good point.
Yeah.
They did more than that too. Cut the hair, sterilization. They were and are still not treated.
Yeah.
And a lot of people talk about how they've been treated. I don't think that there's probably I don't think anyone was treated as worse as Native Americans. I mean, I guess it depends on what you mean by worse, but I mean, look at the grand scheme of things. We're talking, I don't know.
Yeah.
It all sucks. It's all bad. But yeah, that guy shouldn't have done that, or that teacher. I don't know if it's a he or a she. Shouldn't have ran up and tried to cut somebody else's hair. But I mean, what would they? I mean, okay, regardless of whether you're dressed like Captain Crunch or a Native American, why would you do that at all? That's not funny. I mean, I could. You know what? Here's how I could see it and make it okay. If you were dressed like Edward Scissorhands and you went running up like you were going to cut the hair, that would kind of be okay, right? I mean, if you think about it, because what did Edward Scissorhands do?
He cut hair really well.
He cut hair really well, and he trimmed the bushes and all that stuff, and that was his entire character. That was his thing. Edward Scissorhands, he's going to give you a haircut.
Yeah.
And if you were running up to the student going, oh, I'm going to give you, like a fake haircut like Edward Scissorhands, that kind of thing, I would see that as not being a real issue. Like, okay, it's obvious.
Yeah.
But this person is dressed up like a Native American, going to run up and scalp another Native American. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And natives are still being mistreated. Absolutely. You even talked about that with Native American females. They get disappeared and gone all the time. Nobody tracks that.
Yeah, we talked about that a couple of podcast episodes ago. The state of Montana has had 3 times the national average of missing persons this year alone. And all of those missing persons are women.
Yeah,
Native American women. It was something like 38?
No, it was 40 something. It was
40,
a big, no,
yeah.
70. It was a big number. I was like, what the? Because honestly, if you had
if you had that many people missing.
Yeah, so you were going to say white women, right?
Yeah,
you had, but it's kind of true though. If you had like 70 women, okay, first off, it's got to be reported.
Yeah. And
unfortunately, a lot of Native cultures don't report that, for one thing. And then it's really not documented. Regardless of the who did what, and nobody's not doing what they're supposed to do, it should have been reported. And there's all sorts of terrible things that happen.
Yeah.
The women get gone. Rape is a thing.
Murder.
It's a
trafficking.
Thing.
That's almost worse than murder. Being trafficked out. Yeah, that's a terrible life.
It's a thing. So anyway, my rant was, what the hell were these people talking?
Yeah.
Thinking about dressing up like Mexicans and doing all that stuff, and then you brought up that it's like, really? I think our public school administrators, by and large, try to do a good job.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of them, unfortunately, are dumbasses.
Yeah.
And maybe, and that's the thing too. It's like you should. If you were working in that school and they were like, hey, we're going to dress up like it, wouldn't you go, hey, I don't think that's a good idea? You know what I mean? But then you have to look at it like this. I would say that's not a good idea. And people would go, because you'd have 12 other people going, yes, it is a good idea. At what point do you fight the masses over this?
Yeah.
I wouldn't. I'd be like, okay, well, I'm not going to do it. And I would step back, and then I would watch all these people get burned and go, I told you that was not a good idea.
Yeah.
And the problem with that is that seems to be the case with a lot of things like this these days. So, mentors that would be in the workplace, everybody had a mentor at one time or another.
Yeah.
I don't think they're stepping up to do the job anymore because they can't take the fallout. They can't take the shrapnel. You know what I'm saying? It's like, because then that happens too. It's like, okay, well, hey, you should have told them. Well, I did tell them. Well, you didn't do enough to make them not do what they were supposed to do. That's like when you work with somebody who's really not good at their job, right?
Yeah.
And you go and you tell somebody important, hey, look, this person is not good at their job and they're making my job really hard. And they go, well, what have you done to help them? What have you done to make them a better employee? What have you done to make them better? And you're like, well, damn, they should have been able to do the job in the first place. That's why they're supposed to be here. How did they get through this process? And now they can do this job. Now, why am I responsible for making this person who can't do the job do the job? Mm-hmm. They blame it on you. Oh, what have you done to make them better? Why don't you fix the problem? The problem is not me. The problem is the person that can't do the job. And then you say, well, I've tried this, and I tried this. And it's like, well, maybe there's something that you can do more to make them not a dumbass. And you just got to step out, man. Sometimes you just got to step back.
Helena in our live listener chat, if I wanted your tenured job, I wouldn't tell you.
Yeah, exactly. And, it gets to the point where you stop trying to do the right thing because the amount of care that you have towards trying to fix the situation or make the workplace better just goes away because the reprisals that you face. Not worth it. Here's
a little stat on that very scary Native American situation in Montana. In 2017, 30% of Montana's missing persons reports were Native American women, specifically between the ages of 22 and 70. 30%, even though the state of Montana, the Native American population is only 3.3%. 30%, 3.3%. And
that's
then
crazy.
In 2018, it skyrocketed up to 40% of the missing persons reports in the state of Montana, which actually goes to say, let's just say Native American women took up 12% of the missing persons in the whole United States. That makes Montana responsible for like 90% of that.
Wow.
That is terrifying.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Let's move on.
So, yes.
Okay, so
Rained a very long time.
well, I mean, it's
Yeah.
like, come on, what the hell's wrong with everybody?
Yeah. Well,
And why are these people teaching our kids?
because nobody else wants to do it. Because,
You know why? Because they have to jump into an environment that's full of the people that are already teaching our kids.
Or worse, hey, let's get a $35,000 a year job and get $200,000 in student loans.
Well,
It's a thankless job.
It is a thankless job. I know it's full of morons and stuff, but hey, man, that homeschooling thing,
Yeah.
probably not so bad. So I just think it's all just a pain in the ass.
Speaking of pain in the ass,
Well, there you go. Why don't you talk about this?
here's some lighter news for everybody. This is a part of our little stupid news and funny news segment. Police recover stolen inflatable colon. This happened in Kansas City, Missouri. There was a sigh of relief after police recovered a giant inflatable colon that is used to teach about the dangers of colon cancer. Police in Kansas City announced on Twitter on Tuesday that a tip led officers to locate the pilfered intestine inside a vacant house. The 10-foot, 150-pound prop worth about $4,000 was stolen this month from the back of a pickup truck. It had been purchased by the Colon Cancer Coalition, which hosts walking and running events under a Get Your Rear in Gear campaign, and was stored at the University of Kansas Cancer Center. There's a silver lining to this story. Donations poured in after the theft, and the coalition was able to purchase 2 replacement colons.
So now they got like 3 colons.
Unfortunately, nobody is in custody associated with the theft.
You know what happened, right? Somebody's like, dude, I'm going to steal this bouncy ball gym thing. Bounce house thing?
Yeah.
Get this sweet bounce house. Can you imagine taking that bounce house and setting it up in your kid's backyard and trying to blow it up? Because then it would take a while for you to figure out what it is, and it blows up and it's a butthole.
Or even better, it was found inside a vacant house, so some teenagers were probably like, dude, let's make a rave inside the old abandoned house.
Nobody makes a rave anymore.
I don't know.
It's like
Or like, let's start
rave
some
from
sort
like
of party.
90s Europe.
Yeah, maybe.
Nobody's making a rave.
Boots
they
and
were
pants.
like trying to figure out, like, man, we got to blow this thing up and see what it is. I bet they started blowing it up. I'm like, oh, okay, we don't want this. We just put it in there. I mean, who steals like an inflatable colon?
Maybe they didn't realize it was a colon.
Well, I knew they didn't. Why would you
Yeah.
steal it?
It's
Yeah.
because it clearly looks like a.
In its blown up state, but when it's packed up in a box, it doesn't look like that. And what is that crap on the sides in it?
Oh, those are examples.
I don't care
of,
anymore. I don't even want to know. Never mind.
colon health.
Like, oh, hey, go and speak to Mr. Polyp. Hey, everybody, I'm Mr. Polyp. Oh. Gross.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's good for you bad guys. I'm glad you stole a colon. That's what you get.
But hey,
That's like trying to steal a watermelon from a watermelon patch, and you went up in the dark, and you're sneaking around, you grab it, and you take off running because you're stealing it, and you wind up with a pumpkin. Yeah.
that's a weird anecdote.
Just leave that alone.
Oh, okay.
That may have been told to me one time by somebody
Oh,
that I
okay.
respect. Yeah. And they're not listening to the podcast from Norman, but yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, that's about it for that. Mm-hmm. But let's take a second, and since we support the local small businesses, we're going to go ahead and play this. So listen up, everybody.
The following is brought to you by yourwebdesigner.info. Yourwebdesigner.info offers prices and services that are unrivaled by any competition. And yourwebdesigner.info will customize your website to suit your personal and your business needs. CreepGeek listeners, check this out. Yourwebdesigner.info has a promotion going on right now that is sugar sweet. $115 for one custom web design, 1 month of hosting, one logo, and your domain web address? Well, guess what? It's included. For more information, you can visit us on the internet at yourwebdesigner.info. That's INFO. Or call us at 858-683-3657.
Yeah. So getting ready to end the podcast because we've been talking for quite a while, but we're going to end it with this last story, something that we've seen and thought was pretty humorous. although it's more sad than humorous, a lot of the stories that we have here that come out of New Mexico, right? Mm-hmm. So pretty much what happens is, this is from the police, men arrested in pumpkin smashing crime spree. So it's like, this kind of reminds me of like when the guy buys a gun.
Yeah.
Right. And like he has it for like 6 minutes and he gets arrested for shooting. He's like, pew, 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 just shooting off in the air like a weirdo. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like a moron, actually. Like a person who's not very smart.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, this particular, we'll go ahead and.
Well, okay, so this happened in Grants Pass.
All right, there we go.
2 men arrested and suspected in a pumpkin-powered crime spree, ending weeks of incidents of smashed gourds and broken car windows. Reports say that Jacob Solomon and Adrian Ocha, both 19, face multiple counts of criminal mischief in connection with at least 50 vandalized vehicles damaged between October 7th and 23rd. Police say Solomon and Ocha drove around town at night snatching pumpkins from outdoor supermarket displays, which they would then hurl through car windows. Lieutenant Misty English says damages reported by victims are about $30,000 and continue to climb. Police say they were helped in finding the suspects because they carried out the alleged vandalism in an easily recognizable gold Buick with a large dent in one side. It is not immediately known if these men have lawyers.
Yeah, that's my favorite part of the whole thing. It's like, what?
So, and my original title for this was Smashing Pumpkins. But, I mean, we had a pretty chill Halloween here in Rio Rancho. Had a couple of gunshots late into the evening, but I think that was people celebrating.
Those were fireworks.
Really?
Yeah.
That last one?
Yeah.
Okay. So, maybe they were fireworks.
They were holdouts from 4th of July. They were fireworks.
But we had a year here, I want to say it was like last year or the year before, where some kids went around smashing and throwing pumpkins, like along, not our street, but the one street over.
Yeah.
Like every house got their pumpkin smashed. So. Yeah. So now that whole street actually just doesn't do much for Halloween, which is kind of sad. But yeah. But I mean, $30,000 in damages.
Well, it's because they're throwing pumpkins at people's cars and stuff.
Okay.
Driving around a big old gold Buick with a dent in it like a bunch of
50
idiots.
50 vehicles. Let's see. I got to open up calculator.
Well, it doesn't matter. I mean, you smash a windshield, $300-400, right?
Yeah.
Maybe even more. Dents in cars, all that stuff. Just
okay.
These guys are obviously not smart.
Approximately $600 in damage per each vehicle.
If you divide it that way, but
somebody might have a $200 windshield, somebody else might have a $1,000 windshield.
Yeah.
But yeah, gosh, I haven't read any good mischief lately.
Well,
happening during Halloween. But our rant included some very bad mischief, and then this is funny, but it's also bad.
Yeah. So there you go. We're getting to the point where we're about to end our podcast because we've been talking for quite a while. So, yeah, it kind of is what it is. So, very nice indeed. So, we do appreciate you been tuning into the podcast and listening. It's very, very nice. Mm-hmm. So,
do we have any binge-worthy stuff to talk about?
Nope, not this time.
Okay.
So,
well, everybody, be sure to like this video on YouTube if you're watching and subscribe. Hit the little bell icon so you get notifications every time.
Yeah, and if you watch us or listen to us on like Facebook or anything like that, be sure to share.
Yeah. You can join our official Facebook group. Just type CreepGeeks Facebook group or CreepGeeks group, and you'll find our group. Join us. We have pretty active conversations. That's also where I recommend sharing stories or things you think would be cool to talk about on the podcast. If you want to reach out to us, though, if you have a story, we're still collecting personal horror stories, ghost stories, paranormal, alien, anything weird that's happened to you. We still want to hear from you, so contact@creepgeeks.com. You can also also reach out to us at omi@creepgeeks.com or greg@creepgeeks.com. If you have a business inquiry, same addresses, just put attention Greg or Omi. All music in this podcast is licensed under the Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0 license or licensed under the Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0 license. And again, we do list all music in the show notes for each podcast episode. If you want to follow us on Instagram, just type Creep Geeks Podcast. You can follow Greg. He's under Cheap Geek, and I'm under The Ordinary Hiker. And that's about it.
Very nice.
Yep.
So, at this point, if you're listening to the podcast, we're done. Thank you very much. See you later. Take it easy. But if you stick around, this is when we talk and do like a little after show where we talk to people in our chat. So, just another reason why you should watch us on Sundays. Or not. It's up to you. No pressure. Anyway, that's what we're going to do. So we're going to have a little after show. So if you're watching this, stick around. But other than that, thank you very much for tuning in. We'll see you again on Sunday. So see you later. Take it easy.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.